Today's episode is about how do you size platinum. We'll also cover the differences between platinum and gold and why platinum is so much harder and more difficult to work with. We'll cover some different tools needed, and we're going to be sizing a ring down to demonstrate exactly how bright and white that light gets at 3,250 degrees. So I'm excited, hope you are. Let's get going. Okay, what you're seeing is the ring that is our project today. And what we're doing is we're sizing the platinum ring down half of a size. We've removed the necessary metal that is equivalent to the half size. And now what we're going to do is bring the two sides together and meet them as tight as we can. Then we're going to use a very high temperature platinum solder to meld those two sides back together. What you see here is a very white high temperature solder. It's even labeled with a temperature so that you know what solder you're working with. This temperature solder will give you a seamless weld at the point that you're using it. The next one we have out is to show you how even with platinum solders, you have different temperatures. This one's labeled 200 degrees less than. Now, it is good for soldering heads into a ring where it's not as important to have that real high temperature weld. The last one we have out here is one that is hundreds of degrees lower than that, but still yet melts at a much higher temperature than any of your gold solders. But as you can see, it's starting actually to become a little less white, and that is what happens. This is good for soldering like posts onto the back of a head or to tip prongs with. So multiple use temperature solders in platinum for multiple use repairs or sizing. We're going to use the highest temperature one. That's going to give you the strongest bond and the most seamless of welds. All right, now, what might look like early aviators glasses are just one version of the many different type of welding glasses that are used. This is 100% absolutely necessary if you're going to do any work in platinum, or else you will burn a hole in your retina. The platinum melting temperature is 3,225 degrees. It is equivalent to a white star by way of the ultraviolet light that it puts out. That light will absolutely burn a hole in your retina within moments. So extreme caution is always required, and when you start seeing these differences, you will realize why platinum might just be a little bit more expensive to work with. We have closed back in the two sides of our ring to a really tight fit. I have broken off the piece of high temperature welding solder I want to use. Now I have placed it on top of that seam. What I didn't do compared to all the gold jewelry I do is, this is something you don't have to do for platinum. I have not coated it with that boric acid and alcohol mixture that I use for the other metals. Why? Well, because the alloys in platinum do not oxidize. In other words, you can put heat to them, remove the heat, and they stay the same color. With gold and the other alloys in it that it's alloyed with, zinc, copper, and silver, they will turn color upon heating them. So the chemical that you put on, boric acid and alcohol, is a must really to use it to do it properly. Now, I have to hide my eyes behind the goggles, so because I have all this other headgear, including my own glasses, I don't put them on. I just put it in front of it as I apply the heat. Let's go ahead and wish me luck. It's always a process that is not guaranteed. Right temperature, right timing, many things come into play, and you can see actually the pressure from the torch will blow down and off of the solder. That's why I often use the flux as kind of like a sticking agent. Now I'll come further back from it. It allows the flux to kind of heat up, the solder to heat up, and kind of to stick in place. There we go. And we slowly bring it up to temperature. We want the solder to flow and the ring not to melt. Let's go ahead and flow this one more time and make sure it pulls through to the bottom. There's such a fine line between the solder flowing and your ring melting. That's why it's kind of safe to be sorry when you see it flow, to stop and see if you didn't get it right the first time. Every time you heat it back up, you're taking a risk. All right, let's see if that did it. Yes, we'll show you, I think, where you can see that there's solder on the inside of the ring now. So it pulled it up and through. I just have to make sure, and I'll check in just one moment, that the seam is well filled as well. All right, so let me check that. We'll be right back. What you're seeing is me checking to make sure that seam, which is the all-important seam, is completely filled with the material that welded it together. Now, you saw that extra solder that was on the inside. Well, I have removed it. I needed to do so to check that seam, and look, beautifully flush on the inside. Can't even tell where any break, cut, or seam has been. Now, we have to only clean up and polish the outside, but not a simple process with platinum. You use a different compound and different sanding wheels due to the difference in hardness. My favorite disc, not what the old timers would have used, but it is much quicker and effective for me. The old timers would have used a file. We went a little bit more modern here. Now, this flattens very quickly and easily the sides, removing the extra solder, and also checking from the side to make sure that seam is filled. Then we're going to come to the outside. You see the extra solder there as well. We're going to remove that and shape the shank back to what it was originally, which was flat. We're going to remove also, you see some tooling marks. We're going to sand those out. We're going to look at it from the side to make sure everything's even. Now, we're going to use another tool to be able to make it look even on the inside. All right, so we use a barrel wheel here, and we'll be able to even that up. I see I need to go back down a little bit. There's a few scratches there that particular grit will not remove. Now, mind you, my fingers are kind of calloused to the heat. This temperature of the ring is actually quite hot due to the friction. But over many decades of doing this, I guess what I have is a little bit of a heat tolerance. A lot of jewelers will wear little cumbersome thumb and finger guards, and keyword being cumbersome. Better to build up a tolerance. All right, let's go up to a higher grit. Now, platinum, you want to take as high of a polish at the bench as possible, because the polishing compounds they make do not cut very well. In other words, they don't remove scratches. They only will put a high finish on it. So you want to do as much of this work here with the wheels to avoid time at the buffer. All right, so with platinum, when done properly, you do most of the finishing at the bench. When you get to the buffer, shouldn't be but a few moments, and your ring will be done. So let's go ahead and finish it up. We're using the coarser compound right now. Then we're going to switch over to the higher polish right here. All right, so we've completed the polishing aspect of it. Now let's go ahead and ultrasonic and steam it. Those are the two cleaning processes. The one we can skip out on is the rhodium. Not necessary with platinum because it is already very, very white, and that is all people rhodium plate for, is to achieve the whiteness of platinum. We started off that way. All right, let's go clean it. We ran it through the ultrasonic, and that's a professional ultrasonic, remember, where it runs sound waves through the water, a commercial piece of equipment. Then to the very expensive steam cleaner. Love that machine. That blasts and removes any other residue, including fingerprints. So that's why jeweler's tissues are then, watchmaker tissues are then used to put the ring in, so that when it's delivered to you, there's not one other fingerprint on it. At least that's the way I always loved to deliver it. It was sterile. So you have just gotten to witness the very difficult art, and it is an art, of sizing platinum. The difference between that and sizing gold, monumental, time-wise, temperature-wise, dangerous-wise, and equipment and know-how. So I hope you've learned something from this and appreciate then any work you've ever had done in platinum. And now you understand it a little bit better because you have watched the How Do You series on how do you size a platinum ring. I'm Shawn. I really enjoyed the time with you, and I really look forward to our next time together.